Hello, friends. One foolish politician can spell devastation for the entire world, and we are witnessing this currently. On the 2nd April 2020, Donald Trump announced his presidential tariffs. He imposed tariffs on more than 90 countries, and in his typical dramatic way, he declared, "No more." In his opinion, the rest of the world has been looting America for a long time. America, the richest country in the world, was being ripped off by the rest of the world. Once he announced this, stock markets all over the world crashed. Within a week, trillions of dollars were lost, and now the world is in danger of a global recession. Monday, 7th of April, was the worst day for the stock market. Whether in Hong Kong or Taiwan, China or Japan, Germany or the UK, the US or India, stock markets fell drastically everywhere. The strange and childish way that things have been handled here can be seen from this example. On 2nd April, Donald Trump imposed a 34% tariff on China. 2 days later, in response to this, China imposed a 34% tariff on America. Trump did not like this, so he told China to withdraw their newly imposed tariffs. If they didn't, he threatened to impose another 50% tariff. But China remained adamant in its stance. And on 9th of April, America imposed a further 50% tariff on China. In response, China imposed another 50% tariff on America. And so, these two countries are now engaged in a tit-for-tat game. This trade war is hidden from no one. Come, in this video, let's understand this situation properly. What is a tariff? A tariff is a type of tax. This tax is imposed on goods imported from abroad. For example, if you buy a smartphone made outside India, like an iPhone, a 15% import tax is imposed on it by the Indian government. Import tax is a type of tariff. Items like clothes attract a 20 to 25% import duty. Import duty is also a form of tariff. There are mainly two reasons for imposing tariffs. First, to boost the government's revenue. Like other taxes, this is a source of income for the government. Second, to protect local industries. By imposing tariffs, imported goods become expensive, and domestically produced goods remain comparatively cheaper. This incentivizes people to buy more domestic products, giving an advantage to local industries. Many countries impose tariffs for this reason, and there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, if tariffs are imposed smartly, they can help a country's economy. A real example: South Korea. Take South Korea, for example. In the 1980s and 1990s, South Korean farmers faced numerous difficulties. They lacked access to modern technology. As a result, the price at which they sold rice in their own country was much higher than the cost of imported rice from America, Thailand, and Vietnam. To protect the livelihoods of its farmers, South Korea imposed tariffs strategically. They set a limit on how much rice could be imported without tariffs. But if that limit was exceeded, the rice would be subjected to very high tariffs, sometimes as high as 500% or more. Consequently, imported rice became more expensive, giving South Korean farmers a chance to remain competitive. Gradually, with government spending on rural infrastructure and education, farmers began using modern technology. A few decades later, when their efficiency matched global levels, tariffs were gradually removed. Imagine what would have happened had there been no tariffs. The local farming sector would have collapsed, and there would have been widespread poverty and unemployment. This example proves that tariffs aren't inherently bad. When do tariffs become a problem? So the question is, how are tariffs imposed? On what goods? And on which countries? Now, think from the perspective of a country exporting goods. Suppose India exports a large quantity of medicines to South Korea. If South Korea is the largest consumer of Indian medicines and suddenly imposes a 100% tariff to promote its own domestic medicine industry, how would India feel? India would be understandably unhappy. If their medicines stopped selling in South Korea, the domestic industry in India would face destruction. This shows how tariffs, even if meant to protect local industries, can be damaging to other countries. When the exporting country doesn't like such tariffs, it retaliates and imposes tariffs of its own. This leads to a tariff war, a trade war. The importance of negotiation. A simple way to avoid such conflict is through negotiation. Countries should talk to each other, explain their reasons, and come up with mutually beneficial agreements. For instance, they could agree to a limited tariff on exports, allowing a large chunk of products to still be sold. Friendly negotiations are crucial, but Donald Trump did not consult anyone. He imposed tariffs on 90 countries all of a sudden, with the attitude that he'd do whatever he wanted. Unsurprisingly, many countries were not happy and began imposing retaliatory tariffs. Trump claimed he imposed tariffs to reduce America's trade deficit. He even named the day he announced the tariffs as Liberation Day. Understanding trade deficit. What is a trade deficit? Let's say America exports goods worth $1 billion to China, while China exports goods worth $2 billion to America. Here, America's trade deficit is $1 billion, expenses minus revenue. Being in a trade deficit isn't inherently wrong. If your country has a strong economy, receives significant foreign investment, and doesn't rely critically on imports, then a trade deficit isn't necessarily a problem. But Trump believes otherwise. He sees the trade deficit as harmful and used emergency powers to impose tariffs, declaring the trade deficit a national emergency. Experts say that using the Emergency Act in this way is a misuse of power in a democracy. The tariffs in detail. Let's examine the tariffs Trump imposed. He stood before a large board showing tariffs for different countries. Every foreign good imported into America was taxed at least 10%, even from countries with which America had no trade deficit. Trump claimed these tariffs were reciprocal, meaning other countries had taxed U.S. exports, so he was simply returning the favor. Here are some examples: 49% on Cambodia, 46% on Vietnam, 20% on the European Union, 32% on Taiwan, 25% on South Korea, 26% on India, 17% on Israel. After the tit-for-tat with China, the final tariff on Chinese goods reached 125%. China retaliated with an equivalent 125% tariff on U.S. goods. The formula behind the madness. The formula used was simple. They took America's trade deficit with a country and divided it by the value of imports from that country. Half of the resulting percentage became the tariff rate. For instance, America's trade deficit with China is $295 billion, and imports are worth $439.9 billion. This results in 67%. Trump claimed this 67% was the tariff China imposes on American goods, which is false, and imposed a 34% tariff based on that. Shockingly, no one around Trump corrected him. Even school children can understand the flaw in this logic. But the biggest absurdity came when Trump imposed tariffs on uninhabited islands near Antarctica, Heard Island and McDonald Island. These islands have no human inhabitants and haven't been visited in a decade. They're only home to penguins. Perhaps Trump saw the name McDonald Island and thought it was related to McDonald's. Real-world impact. Jokes aside, the tariffs have real consequences. America is a massive consumer market. Businesses around the world rely on selling their goods to American consumers. In retaliation, countries like China, Canada, and those in the European Union specifically targeted regions and sectors in the U.S. where Trump enjoys strong political support. China targeted corn farmers and car makers. Canada imposed tariffs on poultry farms and AC manufacturers. Europe targeted steel mills and slaughterhouses. Their strategy: hit Trump where it hurts politically, his voter base. The global fallout. Imposing tariffs without negotiation is bound to hurt both sides. Exporting countries see their businesses suffer. Meanwhile, in America, everyday goods become more expensive. And the ones who suffer the most? The common man. Today's world is globalized. Many products sold in America are either fully imported or assembled with foreign components. Mr. Beast even tweeted that although his chocolates are made in America, the cacao beans are imported. With these new tariffs, his production costs would rise, making it cheaper to produce chocolates outside the U.S. Lessons from history shows that America has suffered every time it imposed such unthoughtful tariffs. In 1789, the Tariff Act imposed a 5% tax. But in 1890, William McKinley raised tariffs massively, resulting in the 1893 Depression and 25% unemployment. Later, in 1930, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act raised tariffs by 20% across the board. Other countries retaliated, leading to a 66% drop in the global trade between 1929 and 1934, and worsening the Great Depression. Only during World War II did the American economy revive. Since then, America has promoted free trade, helping form the WTO, an organization that aims to reduce global tariffs. But after Trump's presidency, trust in America's stance has eroded. An uncertain future. Singapore's Prime Minister warned that last time trade wars of this scale occurred, they led to armed conflict and World War II. Today, with weaker global institutions and rising self-interest among countries, the world is entering unpredictable territory. On 9th of April, Trump announced a 90-day pause on tariffs for all countries except China. He even tweeted before the announcement, "This is a great time to buy." This tweet, followed by a stock market rally, raises serious questions of stock market manipulation. Who will dare investigate an American president? And even if they do, is there a judge who would pass judgment against Trump? Some say he took this U-turn because he didn't expect global backlash. If so, it shows incompetence. Others say this was all a plan to isolate China. Yet another example of short-sighted strategy. Imposing and removing tariffs like this isn't a game. It affects millions of businesses globally. These businesses cannot price their products properly, unsure of future tariffs. It's like setting your house on fire to kill a cockroach. The same flawed logic as demonetization, but with 10 times the negative impact. Friends, I hope this video was informative for you. Thank you very much.